Hello and welcome to a very special video. Today we're going to talk about rules in the Age of Darkness, how to build an army in the new edition. Now I just want to read this one little part before I really just launch into how this, in my opinion, is going to be the flow chart edition. Let's just go with this. Horus Heresy refines many of its systems to help create epic narrative games. Note, refines, while keeping to the spirit of long established rules. Oh, that's interesting. Well, we're maintaining tradition and we're refining what's there. Let's keep note of that. One of the greatest changes, and they launch immediately into one of the greatest changes. So I don't believe the other two are matter to concern ourselves with, and we're a waste of a sentence at least. But effectively, we're being faced with a new army construction rule that very, very loosely uses the force organization chart. Now, think of it however you will. Whenever you're building a Horus Heresy army, there's a lot of things to consider. Do I think, just my pleb opinion here, that this is an improvement from what I've read? No. I think that this is going to just stack in extra complications and explanations, and you're going to need almost a flow chart. But I will say this, it very much connects into all of those different Praetor types that we have. I'm just saying that been released a year before this. So here's the basic air quote detachment, or your primary detachment. You have a high command with a beaky, a command, troops, and transport icons. Now this is what you're supposed to work off, at least in this example. High command slot has its own things it affects, and so do the command slots. So how this works is your high command slot will have unique options to pick from, whereas your command slots, these ones right here, are going to have their own. And then the troops and the transports are the other requirements of this blah 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 detachment, or primary crusade primary detachment. Okay. So why is this immediately something I think is a bad idea? Well, it's really simple. You are not going, okay, well, here, let's just say this. You have to take these things in here, right? And then you have options on the side. Like you can take extra elites or this or that, this, or fast attack or heavy support or whatever. And you would have those, and then you would make a decision based off what items were available in those categories. This is removing that and replacing it with dependence on your selections in your command, or your high command and your command. So you're getting compulsory choices, blah 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 blah. And they say here there is no such thing as compulsory units anymore. You're free to leave out whatever you wish. Oh, yay. It's really what we needed right now. Does Games Workshop realize the audience that plays Horus Heresy? No, they don't. Never mind. I don't think they even have a person that plays Horus Heresy designing the rules. However, there are bonuses when you opt for specific prime slots. Prime slots are the ones with the little spiky ring around them, just so you know. And then we have our extra detachments, which are unlocked, of course, by your command slots. Oh boy, we got Armored Fist, Tactical Support, Armored Support, Heavy Support, Combat Pioneer, Shock Assault, First Strike. You can pause that and you can read those if you want. So this is the thing. So I'm going to come back here. We had 3 command slots. Note the one that has this. So let's just deal with the 2 at the moment. Of those 2, you could pick an Armored Fist, which would, indicate the vehicles in it. Or you could go Tactical Support, armored support, you could go first strike, which is kind of your fast attacks, or shock assault, which is your terms, scouts, and then heavy support dreadnoughts. Okay. So you could pick these and you don't have to take everything in them. At least as long as I'm reading that right, but I don't care really that much. But this is the kind of flowchart you're going to work through. So now you're going to be like, oh, well, I picked this guy's command slot, went to my armored fist, and then the other guy went to my armored support, blah, 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 blah. We're not going to leave that third one alone for the moment, just so you remember that. Then we talk about our high command. Now, your high command has these right here. Your high command slot is special, so very special. It allows you to take an additional auxiliary detachment or an apex detachment. We're adding more separation between things. We're making more layers to the cake. Again, I don't think this is anything that people have been asking for, and I think it's going to require flowcharts for people who are normal, I guess, is one way to put it, because you're not going to remember what everything is with all the additional rules changes and how much granularity there is. So apex detachments are for your best troops, such as combat routine right here. You can see it's got one of those on one of them. Cadre detachment right here. It's got another one of those specials. And Army Vanguard, one of those specials. Elites such as veterans and Legion Pacific troops. Well, that's cool, I guess. But again, we're 3 charts deep and we're still got more to go. Those are the basics. Right there, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the basics. With these rules, you can build a thematic army that blah, 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 blah. Okay. So, each faction and legion has its own auxiliary and apex detachments, too. If you want to take your army further, there's also... Okay, so prime slots. Like prime cuts. Delicious. Okay. So, these right here, with the little spiky things, this is where we get into this. You may have noticed in the charts above that some of the slots have a special border. Ooh, it's so spiky, marking them as prime slots. That's how you know if it's a prime or not. Like I said, pay attention to those. For each one of these that is filled by a unit, you may select one of several prime advantages. Are you starting to see where I said a flowchart would be required? We're starting to now get, okay, well, we got a prime advantage, logistical benefit. Okay, look, if you want to move to this system, I'm not really big on it. I think there were ways to go with force organization that were just simply better ones. Again, you could have sorted out what counts in certain slots, maybe given additional slots to certain like fast attack, things like that. Maybe have a I can't remember who suggested. Well, like the dreadnoughts have their own potential slot, or a slot that deals with walkers or whatever, and that way you can kind of remove them out of where they have been, and there's less competition, more options you can pick and put on your table, blah 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 blah. More dials without this added complexity where we're gonna go from here and we're gonna go through here, and then you're gonna have to remember that you have super special rings, and the special rings, like much like Sonic, give you special abilities, and on and on and on. Like here you go. This looks simpler than it is, and you're like, oh, prime logistical benefit armor, prime combat veteran. How are you going to tell the name? But here's the thing. At the end of that day, we're just gonna leave it right here, sitting at the Raven Guard. Shazam. All right. I'm going to try to sum it up before I just go on a rant. None of this is what people have asked for. None of this is what people have been wanting. None of this is fixing the problems. This is adding more and more and more and more on top of a system that didn't need extra layers. We didn't need all of these different rules changes and alterations. People were pretty happy with how they did. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do a little bit of tinkering on them and adjusting things to get them more in line with how they're expected or should perform. But in my opinion, for every person who finds this more of an enriching experience, there is going to be at least 2 or 3 that find it a headache, a pain in the ass, and something they don't want to deal with. And this is going to be a trend because not only are you making army construction more complex, which however you feel is one thing, but you're going to have more complex individual rules. You're going to have more complex interactions. You're going to have more and more and more and more and more when you're already dealing with a game that asks a lot and has a lot of things that you need to keep track of that are potentially happening at a very quick pace with one another. And I just don't think that many people are going to find the trade-off of air quote complexity for this on top of all of the additional rules sorting on everything else that we've seen as a good idea. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This edition looks like a pain in the butt, and it looks like it's going to be needing people to actually create documents or sheets just to fill out to keep track of things. I would not be shocked if people have to start thinking about painting the base of their prime units different or putting them on little like tokens just so people can keep track of it, because we're going to be asking more and more and more and more and more and more and more of them mentally to keep track of in a game like this. If anything, we should be making it easier, refining the rules, not reinventing the wheel and going, you know what really was really the better option for the wheel? An oval. So that's my opinion. Let me know what you think, and bye-bye.